So our next session, we're switching from the defense industry to retail, and we have a panel discussion. We're going to bring up some chairs, I believe. You know, the DoD's been doing this for a very long time, and it's great to have the general come out here, take time out of his schedule to talk to us about all the stuff that the DoD's doing. But I've found over the years that there really is a good relationship between the DoD and the vendor community, taking advantage of all the innovation that's going on. So as I said, we're switching from defense now to retail, and we're going to have a panel discussion. Our moderator is Dean Frew. He is the CTO and Senior VP of RFID Solutions for SML, and he'll introduce his panel. So please join me in welcoming Dean.
Good morning. Are we on? What's exciting about being here this year in 17 is Mark and the team have been so committed to this industry. We go back to what happened in 2003 when we started with the Walmart mandates. We now find ourselves in a place in retail where billions of tags are being placed on garments and footwear, where we see thousands of stores using the technology for significant ROIs, and frankly, is probably one of the few things that retail has for them that can help support the change that they're going through with the needs of consumers driving to an omni-channel model. We at SML are a provider of technology, both tags and software, and we're thrilled to work with some of the most innovative companies in the world in retail. And today we've got two of those customers that we're going to talk to. It's going to be, as Mark likes to say, Mark Roberti likes to say, it's a discussion that we're having if we were in a bar together. And I hope you find it to be valuable, instead of us droning on with PowerPoint slides, is to talk about what's really taking place in the industry and what's creating value and the journey that two of the companies that are leading the way have gone through. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin O'Dare, who is the lead business partner at Target. Please join me in welcoming Kevin. Hey, Kevin. And Rich Haig, who's the CIO and CTO of Herman Kay. Thank you. So, Kevin, why don't you just share kind of what brought Target to a place of looking at RFID and give some context to where you're at today.
All right. So listening to Dr. Hargrave yesterday, he had the 10 points about where retail is today and where it's going. And two of those really struck me as very applicable to Target and our RFID journey. The first is the movement of retail from an art to a science and the importance of data. So Mark talked about the importance of data and that being the most important resource. And so Hargrave spoke about the retailers that were fooling themselves about inventory accuracy. Thankfully, we were not one of those, but we also weren't very good. So we were right at industry average from a inventory accuracy standpoint. And when we started this journey in early 2014 and we had a proof of concept, this was right about the same time that we were picking up our omni-channel efforts, and so our buy online, pick up in store. And so we've always known if you have inaccurate inventory and you potentially are out of stock, then you can lose sales. But we never really had a dollar amount to that. Well, the invent of buy online, pick up in store, and then eventually ship from store puts a dollar amount to that. You have guests that are going online and saying, we want to give you our money, and we're saying, sorry, we can't take that. So obviously there's a sales impact, but more importantly to us, there's the guest impact. So it's not just the lost sales then, but it's the future lost sales. And so we actually started to see the real impact of inventory inaccuracy. So as I mentioned, we started a proof of concept back in 2014, basically testing the technology. It worked great. We worked with many vendors that are here today, and everybody's worked. So we chose the one that worked best for us, and we started to scale out which products would be good for RFID. And for us, it was our style categories. So these are the areas that we said as Target we're going to be successful in. And so we basically said we're going to tag everything that's apparel and accessories and soft home. So those areas that other companies, the Macy's of the world, had a lot of success in. So we started to ramp up that. It took a while to get into all of our stores. But we had a pilot program at the end of 2015 in some Minneapolis stores. And then by June of 2016, we started our full-scale rollout. And so from June to September of 2016, we rolled out RFID to about 92% of our stores. We did hold back a few stores from a measurement control standpoint. And then we had to phase some of the departments, but by the end of 2016, we had all of our A&A, apparel and accessories, and soft home tags. So pretty much any product you go into a Target store and see that has fabric, it has an RFID tag on it. And then that brings us to where we at today. And so as I mentioned, our buy online, pick up in store was ramping up. We expanded that to all of our stores, and we began our ship from store, which was more successful than we thought. And then we're over 1,000 stores shipping now. And then that really brings us to where the second point that really connected with Bill Hargrave's speech is the reduction of retail space. So we're not one of the retailers that's closing stores, but we also see the need to have smaller stores. So as we continue to expand and open new stores, we're looking at the urban market, and those that 120,000 square foot retail center is not going to fit. So we continue to open those smaller formats, and there's a lot of logistical issues with a small format. You don't have the space to have excess inventory. So addressing inventory inaccuracy and being able to plan better and not carry a lot of excess inventory is really what's made that expansion more successful. And so that's where we're at today.
Interesting that the technology is, this core technology down at the item level is changing how you think about what your footprint of stores, your square footage looks like. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Great. Rich, why don't you share a little bit? You're coming from the brand side.
Right.
You are a major brand provider of outerwear and other things for the industry. Talk about your journey.
Okay. 4 years ago, I was sitting out there on the floor with everybody else going, what is RFID? We just received a real nice invitation from Macy's, one of my larger retail customers, saying we would like you to become RFID tagged on all your apparel. We're an apparel and outerwear manufacturer. We design and manufacture major brand names such as Michael Kors and Klein, BCBG. We also own London Fog outerwear. So having a major retail presence and knowing where the retailers had to go in terms of their inventory accuracy and their ability to have their omni-channel point of view of their inventory, we obviously said, yes, we'll do it. And we jumped in with both feet. There are two ways to look at RFID tagging on the manufacturing side. One is you can look at it as a pure expense item. The second way to look at it, and the way we looked at it is, okay, we're going to start tagging the goods. Now, how can we use it to make ourselves a better supplier? And we really went in and we sat down with our distribution people and we said to ourselves, you know, what can we do to gain efficiencies from this? How can we take the RFID tags into our process and make ourselves more accurate to make sure that we're getting the right goods to the right customer at the right time? And that was our philosophy behind it. And we rolled out literally a 6-step program in our distribution center, looking at it and saying, you know, right from checking of the goods as we're picking them to make sure we pulled the right goods, to the packing of the goods, to verification, to our outbound ASNs, to electronic proof of delivery, as well as the receiving of the goods coming in from our suppliers, and finally, even our outbound shipments from our own cutting room in the Dominican Republic with finished goods coming into our warehouse. So bottom line is, you know, in 3 years, we've really gone into it hot and heavy, and we were seeing a return on the investment already.
Rich, are you tagging only those things that are going to the customers that are mandating it, or have you decided to just adopt it because of the benefit inside?
No, we adopted it across the board. Initially, the first year we were doing it, obviously we started off focusing on the retailers who had asked us to tag for them by their styles. But by the end of the first 8 months, we realized that if we're going to make this work to our own benefit, to improve the processes within our own distribution center and network, we need to tag everything. So today we tag 100% of all our garments.
Okay.
So whether or not you want an RFID tag, we're shipping it to the retailers. So this way, when they're ready to implement the RFID technology in their stores, well, I raise my hand and say, okay, let's start with outerwear, and I'll be your first candidate for that department.
That's great. Kevin, there had to be a significant transformation of how to think about inventory inside Target. Okay, can you walk us with the audience through about this coming through that 12-step program, that there's an inventory problem and that they need to change and that the models of consumers is changing? How did that take place inside Target?
Yeah, and so I mentioned earlier, we always knew inventory inaccuracy causes issues, and we were starting to get real data to point at the issue. Well, there's a couple solutions. RFID is not the only solution. You can throw man hours at inventory inaccuracy. We've done that over the years, and it didn't really make a big difference. So then we looked at what are those companies out there what are they doing to help with inventory inaccuracy, and what is being really successful. And so while there are, we did hear a couple stories where RFID didn't have successful rollouts. We talked to those companies that both were successful and weren't, and grabbed what makes sense from those deployments, those rollouts, that would work at Target. So the great thing about a conference like this and RFID Journal is there's a lot of experts that get brought together, and they know not only the success stories, but they know those pain points. And so we were able to work through and really plan around those events or deployment issues that could trip up inventory inaccuracy, and to have a successful rollout. And so as we looked at RFID and inventory inaccuracy and we tested it, it worked perfectly. It worked just as everyone described. And then as we expanded, it continued to work. And I attribute a lot of that to the experts here that helped us to work around some of those issues. And then once everyone in the company is seeing the results, then you have the buy-in to keep moving.
Who were the roles that were sitting around the table when you guys were doing it? I think that's one of the things that is common across all the successful projects that we see, is they had a similar footprint of people and organizations around the table.
Yeah, and that's a good call out, because I work in store operations. If it was just a store operations initiative, it never would have worked. If it was just a technology initiative, it never would have worked. So the good thing about our rollout is we had all of those players at the table. So we had the merchants, so they were working with the vendors. We had our sourcing team, so they do audits overseas, so they're checking are our vendors actually tagging the goods. We had packaging, so like you can't overstate what our packaging team had to do, because when you think about home goods, a lot of our merchandise is on metal shelves. As everyone here knows, RFID tags and metal shelves don't work well together. So they had to redesign all of our packaging so that even if items fell over on the shelf, the RFID tag wouldn't be touching it, and so we could still have successful scans. So then of course we had store operations, which was actually deploying to the stores, and then we had our technology team, which was working with the vendors to really integrate it. And had any of those teams not been involved, then it's hard to see that we would have had the success we did.
That's a great model. Rich, when we think about a project, I always think of the CEO model: customers, employees, and owners. How did value get created for each of those three components or stakeholders in the business: customers, employees, and owners at Herman Kay?
Certainly. Well, for our customers, the value really became created when we were shipping the right product on the right truck to the right store at the right time. That's the bottom line. You know, being in a distribution facility with garments on hangers, plastic bags over the coats, you could have a black coat, a dark navy coat, a dark charcoal coat, all look the same underneath the plastic bag. And it may be the right style, but the wrong color. And, you know, as good as we were, we realized real quickly with RFID, yes, all 600 pieces may be correct in total, but when they start boxing them and packing them by store and by size for the individual store locations, that we weren't perfect. And RFID really brought that to our attention very quickly. And it's really made us a much better supplier to our customers. So that's the value for the customers. They're getting the right product at the right time, the way they ordered it. For the employees, it has helped them because they've initially had a fear factor of the RFID in that, can this technology really work? And when we did the training with even the checkers at the very beginning, we ran them through it, and you know, long story short, but we had a group of about 8 people we were training. 7 of them happened to be women and 1 was a gentleman. Well, I let all 7 of the ladies go through, use the first RFID scanners. They're doing great with them. They all came up with perfect scans. They go, yep, this is perfect. Then I had Jim do a scan, and when he wasn't looking, I switched out one of the coats on him and came back to him, and he kept getting red X's, saying, it won't work for me, it won't work. And it was a great learning tool because it showed them, hey, this is what I scanned, this is what was wrong, and then I admitted what I had done to them. And once they saw that and they said, you know what, RFID really works. You know, it's just not like somebody scanning a UPC code with a scan gun and being able to scan the same garment 4 times and say, okay, I have 4 in hand, because each electronic product code has a unique fingerprint. So you can scan it 10 times or 2,000 times, but only registers as 1 item. So that's really the power behind it. And for the employees, that's what gave them the faith that this technology really works, and it makes us more accurate. For the shareholders, obviously, you know, the more we satisfy our customers, the better it is for us, you know, as a business.
How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, so I think we all at Target, we always come back to what does the guest want? And the guest wants, if they find an item, it to be available, whether that's online or in the store. And so just being more accurate and having that product available, replenishing the out of stock, is really the key benefit. When I think about the team member, then this is probably one of the learnings we had, or the benefits. We all knew about the locate feature. We looked at that as a side benefit. We were going after inventory and accuracy. But the Geiger counter feature that helps a team member locate an item, we thought, yeah, the stores will like that, but we didn't know if it would really catch on and be as big useful. And so I mentioned this is rolling out really at the same time that we're expanding our ship from store opportunities, and we're leveraging our entire network to fulfill online orders. And so a lot of stores are ramping up those capabilities. And for team members that may not work in the ready-to-wear, so the women's apparel, the men's apparel, they may not know how or what items we even sell there, and may not know where they're located. But now we have an army of folks in some of our stores going out and trying to pick these items to fulfill. And we found that they jumped all over this locate feature. And so
Makes a huge difference other than
it does.
the needle in the haystack stuff.
Correct. So we have a lot of women's gray shirts. And so if an order comes in for an extra small women's gray shirt, it can take a while to find. But with the locate feature, they're able to locate it very, very quickly. And then similar to Rich's comment, for the shareholder, it's pretty straightforward. We make the guest happy. We make a better shopping experience for the team members as well. And they come back more.
Great. So from a surprise standpoint, I mean, you know, you think about it, there are only 7 full deployments in the world so far, bunch of folks testing. You guys are at the, you know, kind of the tip of the spear of folks who have gone all in. All of those kind of projects end up with surprises. And so, Kevin, why don't you kind of talk, what What are the couple top surprises that you saw through the process?
So the one was the locate feature. The
Yep.
stores have a very limited budget that they can spend on their own, and stores were choosing to spend more money to purchase additional scanners because they truly saw the benefit. I would say one was we heard all the success stories and the non-success stories, and the surprise for me is across the 1,600 plus stores that we have scanning hanging apparel when all the upstream efforts are working is really easy.
So once everything's tagged and it's coming in.
It's very easy. Our store team members are really successful scanning hanging apparel. Scanning our items that are on metal shelves, not as easy. So that's where we had to spend more time around the store execution and the scanning processes, just because making sure that they're actually getting those items that are on the bottom shelf. But overall, if everything is working correct upstream, and you mentioned that we are source tagging, we source tag all of ours. We knew that both the expense and the potential human error of tagging in a distribution center in the store would not work for us. Mm-hmm. When that's working, then scanning apparel is really easy.
That's great. How about you, Rich?
We learned a couple of different lessons. One of the surprises was when you talk about cross-functional teams, who has to be involved in it, like Kevin was talking about. Even on the manufacturing side, we realized after the fact that hey, we have to go back and we have to get the designers involved. We have to get the production people involved. In the case of my Michael Kors coats, they may have a plastic button, but it has a metallic spray on them for a coating. Well, when you fold them in a box and you put the sleeves over, and all of a sudden the RFID hang tag's on top of a button, and the two spare buttons are on the little nylon tag laying on top of that RFID tag, there's no way any scanner in the world can scan that. So this is one of the challenges that we had, and we've gone back with our production people and our designers saying, okay, this is where the spare buttons, the extra buttons on our garment go, and this is how we pack the goods, so this way we can read them properly. It's all part of the learning curve. You can go out there, you do the prototype, and you say, okay, we're going to roll it out, and then you start learning from it, and you make adjustments for it. The other thing that we learned in combination with the folks from Clarity was, how to build a tunnel that we can actually pull a whole pallet of goods through and be able to read it effectively. So when we're picking a 6,000 piece order, we can pick it and verify all the EPCs in advance of even packing it. So it's quite a learning curve.
How do you see, Rich, for you, your customers are changing dramatically, okay? You think about the focus on omni-channel, and as Kevin and the team at Target have demonstrated, using their stores as basically distributed warehouses. And I remember you and I had a conversation earlier this year when we started seeing some of the changes going on in the retail space. How is the omni-channel world going to impact a brand owner, and how does RFID and item level inventory management fit into that?
Great question. The way I look at it is that with the RFID that we've implemented, now when my retailers are ordering goods from me by store location, I'm shipping them exactly what they need. Because we've gone through and we've tied the whole Clarity system into our ERP system, not only am I packing it and capturing the electronic product code data and associating with a GS128 carton ID, I then associate it with an ASN, and that ASN is associated with the bill of lading, with the trucker, the dock door, the time, and the shipment and everything going out to a retailer. And one of the things that, as a benefit has come back to us last fall, a couple of times I had occasions, received an email saying, hey, this great shipment was wonderful, but you're 2 cartons short. And we went back, we pulled out the EPC information, the Clarity system, supplied it to the retailer, and said, please go do a Geiger search on this. They did, and they found the cartons they misplaced in their DC. So without that, it would have been a chargeback for us, and more importantly, it would have been lost sales for them because they would never had the merchandise to the store that needed it in a timely fashion.
And Kevin, so one of the things that we hear about is that RFID is extremely difficult out at the vendor level, okay? And one of the things that we've always observed is whether you're putting an RFID hang ticket or a regular hang ticket on a garment, it's pretty much the same thing. What was your experience basically? You guys are doing hundreds of millions of tags a year. What was your experience at the vendor level? Was there any organ transplant rejection that took place out there, or
Yeah.
what happened?
So I would say, and it gets to two of the points of how do you have a successful RFID deployment for those that are considering it. And two of the things that were done which made our program successful is we went to source tagging, which meant the vendor had to apply the tags. And we also were really clear about the tag standards. So we were very clear about, for different types of product, what tags needed to be applied. Our vendors, for the most part, were already ordering tags from tag manufacturers. No, those tags did not have RFID antennas and chips within them. That changed. They ordered ones that did have them. And when I think about all of the vendors that are servicing all of the products we have, we've had a really, really, really high success rate there. So without a doubt, there are, every now and then we do have some that come in without tags that we have to catch. But for the most part, it's been really successful and a pretty smooth process. There's a cost associated with the tags that we work through, but
The ROI supports it.
yep.
Okay, good. So last question before we go to some, open it up for Q&A, but both of you are deploying technology, you're deploying handhelds, and in your case, Rich, you're deploying fixed readers with them to do at certain read points. If, just to get that out on the table, and if you look, if you were sitting in a bar with another one of your peers, okay, and none of us technology people were around, okay, what would you tell them? What would you tell them about the journey that you guys have been on and where it's going? And let's start with you, Rich, first.
I tell them it's been a real eye-opener and a learning curve. We initially set up some of our packing lines. We said, you know what, we're just going to use handheld scanners to pack the goods. And in some cases now, we've gone to fixed readers, because fixed readers do work better in certain situations. We have also learned that shielding is very important on outbound portals. We have 21 outbound doors, and in some cases we have 5 or 6 that are directly next to each other with about a 3-foot distance between them. So setting them up correctly, it's not something where you just pull out a blueprint and say, okay, I'm put 2 antennas here, 2 here, and here goes my reader, and everything's going to work perfect the first time. Okay, it takes fine tuning, but once you learn how the RF signal works, and you can actually get it so that you have a very clean read, and it's a learning curve, but it's been a wonderful journey because once you have it in place and it's up and running, it works phenomenally well. And the people who use it are, initially there's being humans, there's a learning curve to it, and you want to go through and you build that confidence level in it, and then they trust the system. And that's really the key, because if you have a truck driver who's waiting, saying, okay, I have to get out the door, it's like, no, the system says something's wrong. They're now to the point where, okay, we trust the system, we're going to go and double check and make sure that we don't have any wrong goods on that container or that truckload going out.
Great. Kev?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, it works. We started this journey 3 years ago, and so there was a long time before we actually saw our inventory accuracy improving, so that was a huge win after putting in a couple years of work. So to finally see that, validate all of that effort. I mentioned that the locate mode was a really big win for the team members, even bigger than we thought. I mentioned the importance of source tagging and of having the entire company involved. It wouldn't be successful without the other areas. On the other side of it, though, I can't overestimate the importance of how you use the data. So we've all heard Pam from Macy's up here talk, and inventory accuracy, the sweet spot and what the company or what your business gets out of it is how you use the data. So having more accurate inventory by itself has maybe some benefit, but not a lot. So then once you have everyone bought in on that, that improvement, then you have to change your processes. You have to change your system to leverage that better data. And then that's when you really get the benefits beyond just the increased inventory accuracy.
Great answers. I'm going to stop there, call Mark out, and I think we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So Mark.
I'm here. All right, folks, we have some mic runners. If you have a question for our panel, anybody have a question? Right here in front, please. This gentleman in the blue shirt.
Hi, Rich. Is there any, you said you're tagging everything now, so is there any risk that you're tagging something that's not compatible with any retailer you're getting ready to sell to, whether it's the actual RFID technology itself or the surrounding support mechanisms just around the RFID effort?
Well, when we tag goods initially, we're doing all source tagging, which means that if I'm having one of the goods made in one of my multiple factories overseas, we're using a service bureau, SML service bureau, to do all our tagging for us. And what that allows me as a brand owner is I have visibility from the time that a tag is ordered to knowing when it's been printed, what supplier it went to, what garments have been put on, and through the whole supply chain. So I have a complete view of the history of a garment coming into me as to where it came from. And then also because we do track all the electronic product codes, when they get packed by a GS-128 carton number, outbound ASN, I know exactly what truck and carrier they went on to. So I have a whole visibility chain. We know because we have scanned it both at the packing station and also at the weigh station for verification, and then a third time on the outbound when we're shipping the goods, that all the tags read. So there are no issues there.
Right, but I think the question is in terms of the, you send some to Macy's and they read it, some to Target, they read it, but what about someone who may not have a compatible system? Are there any retailers using something that's not able to read your tag?
Well, all of the tags that we're using have been approved by the retailers for use, and the industry standard that's out there is supported by everybody. And you know, that's the one good thing with RFID Journal, because it brings everybody together at a common footprint, as well as just one organization, so that everybody has the same standards and we're all following them.
Right, okay. We have another question. We have one over here.
This is for Kevin. How often are you doing RFID inventory scans, and are you doing any RFID scanning at POS?
Good questions. So we are currently scanning once a week. We are using handheld scanners. We did consider overhead readers, but just with the size of our stores, that was almost cost prohibitive. And so we're scanning once a week and updating our inventory. And currently we're not using POS readers. It may be a future use case.
Kevin, have you had any customers raise privacy issues, concerns about, you know, the tags being in the items?
We haven't. That was something that we haven't heard of any. That was something we absolutely looked into, and you know, there's that group out there that thinks RFID is tracking you worldwide. Like, we know that passive tags don't work that way. Right. And then the other benefit of the way that we apply tags to our goods are they're all on the hang tags. These are items that the tags are torn off when the customer gets home. Right. So even if there were scanners, which they're not, that could read from a great distance, they're disposed of.
Right. Okay. A question here.
Kevin, with the, and I guess for both of you, would be, with the omni-channel, we talked about the forward logistics, trying to get it out to the customers, but how about, have you considered, and are you using it for the reverse logistics, right? So with the omni-channel, you're going to have also inherent issues with product coming back to you. Have you considered that?
Yeah, and so, and as I mentioned, these tags are disposable. So we do have lots of returns that come through our stores, both that were ordered online or purchased in the store. And so we have a process in our guest service area where they will, using that handheld scanner, encode a tag and apply it if it doesn't return with a tag.
Okay.
And from the manufacturer's point of view, you know, if I have returns coming back for retailers, if it's a damaged product, whether it got damaged somewhere in the supply chain, then it's a non-sellable item, so there's no reuse of a tag there. If it comes back with a valid RFID tag that is scannable, then we'll reuse it. If it comes back without a tag or a defective tag because it's been cut in half or ripped somewhere along the line, then we will re-tag at the distribution center level.
Okay.
But one of the important things, though, you know, being a manufacturer and looking at it is you have to have, well, we have a cloud-based system so that when we are doing re-tagging at our warehouse, okay, we control the serialization. This way, you never have a repeat of your electronic product codes on a given UPC or RFID hang tag.
Okay, so just if I can elaborate on this. So you do have more than one manufacturing facility and you're able to manage, make sure that the same EPC wasn't put on at two different facilities?
Yes, that's correct, Mark. For everything that we manufacture overseas and import in 30-plus factories, SML does Service Bureau printing for us, and they control the serialization. And for the goods that we make ourselves in the DR or in our retagging, we have a separate system which is controlling the serialization of the UPC codes and electronic product codes that go onto them.
Okay.
So there's no overlap between systems, and electronic product codes are never duplicated.
Good. Did we have one here? Okay.
Thank you. In relation to your current installations for RFID for your inventory control, have you augmented those systems to include a security aspect to identify or prevent theft from employees or other parties within your distribution chain?
Yeah, so the loss prevention aspect is a use case that we are currently exploring. The data is there for our assets protections team to use. So currently they have processes to go out and audit and they monitor all the things that a loss prevention teams look at. But now on top of that, they have basically a weekly inventory that they can use as well to help better understand if there are theft rings, if there are any patterns to it. We haven't integrated in with our point of exit readers, but it's something we continue to look at.
If I could add real quick, we had a customer that that was a use case that was at the bottom of the expectation list, and what we found was as soon as we implemented RFID in their stores, all of a sudden the stores with RFID showed up on the bottom of the inventory adjustment list because accountability was now at the item level, and it didn't take the thieves in the store long to figure out that they knew when the shirt was arrived. And it was a big surprise, and now we've found that across other retailers that it's a subtle second order kind of benefit that shows up in shrink reduction.
Okay. Other questions? We have a couple questions over here.
So today it seems that you're using RFID for inventory accuracy, the Geiger counter feature, and replenishment. Are there any other processes today that you're gleaning from having RFID in your stores?
So our primary use case and what we went into was around inventory accuracy. We obviously deployed the locate mode as well, and then that feeds our replenishment systems. There are a ton of additional use cases, which I'm sure y'all hear about or have already heard about other retailers using. We are looking at up to all of them in some aspect, but the primary where we have put all of our efforts initially is around the inventory accuracy and how that impacts our inventory levels that trigger replenishment. we haven't gone too far down the road of the other use cases.
Okay. Right next.
Hi, I was wondering are you updating your back office inventory as part of your weekly cycle counts? And also just a question on have you considered sewn-in RFID versus tag a plate?
So we update our inventory for our entire store, so front of house and back of house. From the sewn-in application, we haven't put a lot of thought into it to date because, to Dean's point earlier, the vendors had to make no change with our current use of them just now ordering tags with RFID chips and antennas. So it could be something we look at further down the road, but not today.
Okay. The second part of that question was, wasn't it a two-part question? Okay. Okay. We had another one right in front there.
Kevin, at Target, you mentioned that you're focusing in on two departments, the home goods and then apparel. Is there any plan to move to health and beauty? And if not, why not?
So I would say we love the benefits of RFID, and if we think we can move to those areas, then we probably will. As you know, or as you probably know, the passive UHF tags do not work as well with around liquids and metal. And so as you look at health and beauty, there's a lot more of that. So thankfully, the industry continues to develop there and create better and better tag solutions. So as that occurs and as the business case warrants, we'll continue to look at not just health and beauty, but all areas.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe we have one over here.
My question is regarding the anti-theft. Like we in Saudi Arabia, we are using two kind of technology, HF, UHF. For the HF, we are using a library. They are using ISO standard 28560. There is call it AFI, Application Family Identifier. While in UHF, we are using some kind of association in the database for the asset management system or asset tracking system. So let's suppose like some cases there is the failure occur like the network crash or something like someone unplugged the reader or something happened. In this case, there is like it's lack of, like it cannot detect the tag while it's going outside from the store or from the place where it's lying. So what is like how the UHF, for the UHF, how it can be handled, or is there any in future there is any kind of same kind of ISO standard will be happen for in the time of encoding?
So make sure I understand the question. What happens if we don't have the readers active?
There is a kind of security bit, you can say, which identify either the book or the item is checked out or not. Like it's properly checked out from the inventory. Yeah. In this case, like in UHF, they are using association in the database or real time on the real time basis. While the HF, which is using in the library, it's depend on that. Sometimes it's used real time, or sometimes it's use the AFI value.
So is there a security bit that can be turned on and off that simply, instead of going back to the database and saying, hey, this item's sold, it can go out, just save time at the point of sale, turn off the bit? Yeah, Dean,
I was going to say that in the retail apparel industry is clearly driving the most volume, and the standards that are coming out of that is moving away from association and moving toward a product catalog format. And because of that, if you can move away from a product catalog format, you can do some things for fault tolerance that you can't do if you have to go look up a 96-bit tag to see what it is. And I think You know, this is a common thing inside retail, is to address how do we, if I walk into a bad zone in a store where my Wi-Fi is not as good, I want to be able to continue to do my stock count. And I'd say, I think the retail industry specifically is setting the, you know, kind of setting the standard of how to handle fault tolerance inside supply chain, inside solutions.
Okay, good. Couple more. Okay, I've got a lot of questions today. Good. Do we have a mic runner down front? We've got a couple. There's one right here.
Hi. Have you been using RFID to understand the customer behavior inside the stores, like tracking shopping carts or other stuff like that?
So are you using RFID to understand what the customer is doing?
Yeah, so I think that ability is out there, and while it's enticing to better understand, we probably aren't at a point where we're ready to share how we're using tags around the store, outside of the inventory accuracy play.
Okay, we had a couple more. There's one down front here. First row.
I think this is about source tagging. I think you guys touched upon source tagging. I know, I mean, Macy's is mandated few vendors, or Target is mandated few vendors. As an industry leaders, because I see a vendor, a retailer, and a technologist sitting together, are you guys planning to do any kind of like overall retail spectrum to mandate every vendor to have an RFID source tagging? Do you see that coming anytime?
I mean, in my view, like we already, for all of our vendors in the areas that we're tagging, we've already told them we need to have RFID tags. So as far as vendors that support other retailers that aren't there, I mean, I can let some of the brand owners speak, but like.
Okay, it's kind of a win-win situation in that case, right? So
we went with because of the way our business is, I do make our own goods down in the Dominican Republic and wool goods, okay, plus do tagging in my distribution center. I also source from over 30 factories overseas. And so we looked at it and we said, you know, we have history with two wonderful suppliers of hang tags for the past 20 years. You know, how do we make this work for the best for the company? And what we did with SML is we went to source tagging, so everything that I'm bringing in, whether it be rainwear, polyfill, from overseas, our suppliers go onto their portal, order the tags, and this gives me visibility, like I said before, right into the supply chain as to, you know, what cut ticket, you know, when were the tags ordered, what garments were they going on, and how they come into us. And this way my serialization is controlled by it, and I have complete view of it all the way through. And then the wool side of my business and the tags I reprint in my own distribution center, again, I have control over the serialization of them, and I know when and what they're printed for and how they're applied. So I have no issues with the serialization, and I have control over it and visibility.
And one thing I was going to add is that there's a spectrum. We see customers that have got sophisticated packaging and trim suppliers, and we include ourselves in that. And we have other customers who have got local suppliers of a hang ticket or a care label. And what we're seeing is, as retailers and brand owners move toward RFID, the ability for those local suppliers to supply RFID, now RFID product, is diminishing because the complexity, investment it takes to be able to support large and small customers is different, and those local packaging and trim suppliers are not going to be able to support that. And that's probably the biggest disruption in the supply chain, is that those companies are having to move toward new packaging and trim suppliers that support RFID.
Thank you.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I want to thank our panelists. Terrific job. Thank you so much for coming.